Hi guys, Sam from Warpgate Studios. Hope you're doing well. Today is the first video in a double series that I'm going to be doing on basing from these guys called Huge Miniatures. They were gracious enough to send through some stuff for me to try out, and I really love getting some urban bases done with these. I've got one prepared already, and this is roughly what we're going to be achieving here. It's a mixed texture base of rubble with a little bit of tufts, just to add a little bit of something to it. So I'm going to go through in this tutorial how to get this effect, and it's pretty easy, actually. It really is that simple. So starting off, just to go over some of the products that I've got. So the thick stuff is called Urban Rubble from Huge Miniatures, and it is a very coarse material, really good for rocks on your bases. And they're lightweight material, super lightweight, so they're really cool for putting on stuff. I love them, and you'll see that I have in another video that I'm going to be doing shortly on kind of woodland slash spring summer type bases. These have got a different purpose in there as well. So yeah, really multi-purpose for rocks, general rock usage on dioramas, bases and those sorts of things. So really like that, really cool, and I'll show you kind of later what we're going to do with it. The next one is a medium grit that Huge Miniatures do, and this is a bit finer. A lot of people overuse this product and just literally dip their model into this, and this is their basic material. I like to use this very sparingly, and you'll kind of see on the finished base there's a little bit that I've just dribbled into the kind of mixture on the top here, just to give it a little bit more variation of texture on the base. So very happy with that. But yeah, use this one sparingly, but we're going to be using some medium grit as well. And then the final kind of grit side of things from Huge Miniatures is the Urban Fine Grit. This is like a kind of really fine sand. It's got some browns in it, it's got some blacks, and I like it because it just adds a little bit of warmth to bases. So on the urban bases, you'll see that I kind of painted over this, but for any other bases, it's kind of got an earthy texture to it as well. So you know, you could use this on earth-based bases along with sort of the rubble, but I kind of use this just to give another texture on that urban base, because the urban bases can be quite boring otherwise. And then the last texture that we got is the Huge Miniatures texture paste, and this is the basalt, which is a super fine black. So this is going to be our base of the mixture. Huge Miniatures also does some nice little texture putty knives type things, which I'm going to kind of show you how easy it is to use these. The mixture sort of is pretty coarse for brushes, and as I've said in a couple of other videos that I've done, don't use this material with your brushes because it will absolutely ruin it. So these little texture putty knife type applicators are really good. So as far as the urban base goes, all I'm doing is on an unprimed base. Don't really need to worry about it because this stuff sticks like anything. It's great. Stick on the texture to start with, give yourself a nice base. I normally work so that it's kind of a gloopy full texture on that base, so you kind of got a good mix. So I'm happy with that. That's going to be my base material that I'm going to do while this is drying, and this is going to take a while to dry off. The best thing about these palettes to wash off, just grab them in a little bit and they're completely clean. So that is really all you need to do to clean up the spatula. The first bit I'm going to do on here is use the Urban Rubble. So I'm literally just going to get 3 or 4 rocks, just a small little handful, and not go crazy. I'm not going to go like too nuts with this. Just a few rocks, and I'm going to pop them on the base. So if you've got a model already on this base and you're kind of working around this, you can kind of strategically place some rocks and get them so that it's you know, you've got enough space in the middle for your model to kind of go on. So that's where I'm going with these rocks at the moment. What I do is I'm going to push these down quite a bit into the material so that these kind of can sink in and use that texture as a glue on here. And we're already seeing that this is kind of building up quite nicely. The next thing I'm going to do is grab my medium grit from Huge Miniatures, and I'm going to sprinkle very, very gently onto this, and then just make sure that just that texture's on there. It looks very, very black at the moment because everything is black, but we're going to lighten that up later on with some dry brushing and get it looking pretty rocking. So that's the medium grit on there. And then the last one that I'm going to do is the fine grit, which is the sand based material. So let's get this one here, the Urban Fine Grit, and I'm just going to give this a little sprinkle onto some areas just to break up some of that. There we go, beautiful. You can dip this in here as well if you want to, but I wouldn't recommend it with, you know, this procedure, purely because you're going to just get it covered. So that's going to be our base to work with at the moment. So you'll see there's the heavy, medium and the light textures all on that basalt base. I'm going to gently dib some of this in and just push some of this onto so that it all sticks into that texture that we've got, and then I'm going to wait for this to dry. So I'll be back once this is dried, and we'll continue on with this base. Okay, so the base is now dry. I've given this about 2 to 3 hours just to fully harden up that texture, which is great. Now I'm going to kind of get my dry brush and do a little bit of dry brush work on this. The first part of this, I'm going to give it a little bit of texture, get rid of, lighten these rocks up a little bit, and then really give everything a little bit of a dry brush, and then we can slap some of these green tufts on here and pretty much call it good. It's that simple. So I'm going to be using 2 paints from the Pro Acryl Monument Hobbies range, which is the bright dark warm grey and the bright neutral grey. Really two good greys for kind of urban rubble, and it's super simple. Just a little bit of a heavier dry brush with the darker colour, just to kind of start blending everything in. Just a little bit on the palette, or on a base in my instance. I'm just going to get a little bit on my brush and rub most of it off. And then I'm going to give this kind of a high kind of heavy dry brush, just to tie this in, just to take off some of that shine on the rocks, and kind of start blending everything in to this while still leaving some of that black texture underneath. So there we go with that. And then I'm just literally going to grab some bright neutral grey, throw some of this on there, and just be careful where I put this. This is going to be a little bit of a lighter consistency, and I'm not going to use too much of it either. And I'm not even going to rub my brush out either, because I want some of that darker grey still in there to tone it down just a little bit. I'm just using off screen a texture palette, just to get some of that off, that paint off. And then we're literally just going to take a little bit of it and just pick out some of these bits of rock, the highlights of it. The rocks from Huge Minis are really, really good for picking out elements in there, and having some nice little edges on there to kind of pick out. And what I like is actually kind of just going a little bit more. So we've got those 2 colors there. I think I can actually get a little bit more out of that with the white. So I'm going to try and get a little bit brighter on some of these, just for it to stand out a little bit more on some of these edges. And if you really want to, and I probably will do as well now just to accentuate the video, is grab a little bit of white, and I'm going to just add a little bit of white into these and finish it off with just a touch of white from Pro Acryl, the bold titanium white, just to just get some of those extreme edges on some of those rocks. And again, I'm still using the same brush. I haven't washed this brush out yet because I want some of that grey to kind of seep through, and I want to get most of this off. And with a final coat on the dry brushing, I always use a little bit of my hand just to pick out, just to see, yeah, there's a little bit in there. And I'm gonna just pick out the last little bits, some of the rocks and some of the edges on here of these rocks, and really just kind of finish it off. I don't know if you can kind of see where I'm picking up, but just some of the little bits, some of the edges, even some of the dirt down at the bottom. Just pick a little bit off. You've not got a lot of paint on the brush, but it's enough to actually give it a really, really good texture. So really happy with that. I'm now going to just get most of that off my brush and wipe all of this out. And then last but not least, we're going to grab some super glue and get these tufts put on. So the tufts are from Huge Minis as well. They are these are kind of their forest, verdant sort of forest based greens. I've got some others from them as well, the brighter green, but I'm going to be using that in a different video. These are how the tufts come in a nice big sheet. Yeah, they're very good value for what you get, so I'm kind of happy with that. So yeah, with these, I'm going to break these up a little bit, these tufts, so they come in like these pre-random shapes, but I kind of like breaking them up. The one thing that I have noticed with the tufts is they come on a kind of a browny base. The good thing about it is the way that I'm going to show you now how to use them, you kind of can hide that, because I don't really want any brown showing on my base, on a rubble base, because there's no dirt there. I just want rubble. So I'm going to put a little spot of my super glue, and then I'm going to grab one of the tufts that I want to play with on here, if we can. Okay, great. And I'm going to pop it on there, and then I'm going to start flattening out the tuft. So if anybody looks at tufts, you'll notice that there isn't much all going in one direction. The plants always like to go in different directions, so I kind of like flattening the tufts out a little bit, just to give them a little bit more of a natural feel. And there we go. You can't see the brown on the bottom once you've smushed it all in. And I use a kind of old stabby knife. You can use like some tweezers or something to push this down, but I really like a good connection with the base and the texture. And then yeah, it's just a case of kind of going from there and putting some random bits in on the model and getting these tufts put on and smushed in. I do like to smush them as much as possible and hide that brown. You can put these tufts on while the texture is drying, but because I use paint and I'm dry brushing on the top of this, it's kind of difficult to do that. So I have to do a good hide job on the bottom textures, and kind of just smush them into the texture still. And you can hide them easily, so it's kind of good, but it also enables you to smush these plants, these tufts, down a little bit and kind of get them all hidden on the base. I've got one more to do on this. I'm just going to put it kind of randomly just in there. Nice little spot for some plants or some growth, and I'm just going to pop that in there. Perfect. And if you do this even after a couple of hours, the texture underneath, you can paint on it and everything else. If you actually push down hard on it, you'll actually still go into it. It's still soft up to sort of like the next day type thing. But there we go. That is the Urban base, and the way that I would do it, with completely using Huge Miniatures. Apart from the paints, everything on there is using Huge Miniatures products. So the rocks, the textures, all of the 3 different textures on there, the plants and everything else. So in theory, this is a brilliant one-stop shop for some really good and realistic bases for Urban Rubble. I love it. You could replicate this with lava bases and those sorts of things, and kind of go crazy with it. But yeah, hope you like the video. I've got another one coming up shortly, based on like spring and summer type style bases, so keep an eye out for that. But yeah, thank you for everybody that's continued to subscribe to the channel. If you do like this video and want me to produce more on random bases using Huge Miniatures products, please feel free to like and subscribe and comment on it as well, and let me know how you get on with your own bases. So yeah, thanks ever so much for watching, appreciate it, cheers.